In the Darkness I See, by Anon Y. Chapter 5. Pride. Part 4. I made a point of pride as sin in the next meeting with Tommy, urging him to rid himself of such an overwhelming cancer. I welcomed him warmly back into my office and smiled at the realization that the regularity of our meetings had finally reached a static level of habitual consistency. It was simple and efficient, the system we had finally refined. He greeted me with a small pleasantry. I returned with something open and unthreatening. He sat, and the battle commenced. After the newest pattern had been enacted, I asked, spreading and covering all insecurities, submerging them beneath layers of concentrated coping, the wonders of the world dull against the unreflective stone wall that surrounds this man. He stands boldly in his own way. Who might this be? I made it clear that it was a direct reflection of his attitude by staring directly through his bright and daring eyes. The sin he guessed immediately, yelling, "Pride!" "How are you tainted by this spirit?" I questioned with the same ease. "Or are you at all?" After lengthy introspection, Tommy answered, saying, "This world is made of the strong and the weak. It has been this way since the dawn of time. The privilege of difficult contemplation is an externality, not connected inherently to meaning." I indirectly asked why he would change the topic completely when faced with potential growth, replying, "Though this is true, at least at first glance, it avoids the fundamental acceptance or rejection of your truth." "Give it more than a glance," Tommy retorted, unfazed. "How could I be proud or unproud when I understand the world and myself as we are and not as I want us to be? I'm not exactly contradicting you." Though slightly misinterpreting my definition and assuring me of his non-contra stance, he had called forth a rather cogent negation of my question. There was nothing more to say about pride within the context of that section of its meaning. Lost on him, the other, more viscerally active partition worried me. It worried me as his answer, clear as day, was synthesized by the very part of him I had hypothesized to be the problem. His pride, crafty and swift, had stripped him of objectivity within his interaction with the world on a primary human level, all the while falsely convincing him of his apt perception of reality. Though he was able to accept the dualities of good and evil, with all the manifested indecipherable laws and distinctions tight snugly squeezed into his universal conception, he couldn't accept a personal rejection of his persona. It was as if he had won the ultimate acceptance to a ride, but the required height lingered unlovingly above his head still. He held the knowledge, but it had all come too easily. While his retrieval and application of the tools for understanding life had been thoroughly repeated, he remained untrained in all the interpersonal adaptations required for human growth. His isolation, combined with his overgrown, prideful demeanor, had left him barren of visionary objectivity when peering into his own mind. I reminded him of the dangers in overcompensating for lack of identity or achievement with abominable pride. Simply summarizing my thoughts, I said, "Inadequacy is the most resolute maleficence maker. Pride may only mask it temporarily." His smirk ran from him with intense cause. He hunched over and attempted to render some clear indictment of my warning. As he approached a clear landing for his counter-argument, I watched as the longing for appeasement of his chinked pride grew stronger. It drew all the energy from his face, leaping from one part of his mind to the next, his eyes jumbled up from their pursuit. He replied, "What would be the difference between pride and self-esteem? Are you insinuating that I have conflated the two? The fine line distinction between net positive and negative lies here, as it does for any spectrum. So where have I faltered, failed, or fallen? Or am I overcomplicating your analysis?" I sensed some sincerity within his counter and continued to explain, saying, There is no clear difference you are willing to accept between pride and self-esteem because they are too polar in your mind. In truth, there is little overlap between the two. The specified protective pride isolates, and self-esteem lets others in. The former controls and condemns an individual into the cornered existence of an outcast, while the latter allows for growth, faith, and toleration of healthy risk. Note just how much time you have spent dancing around pride and its effects on your life. Think not of self-esteem as has been parodied, but rather as a grouping of ideas that summarize a healthy person's non-emptiness. Tommy quietly laughed and slowly shifted forward, his whole body implicating him in agreement. "Okay," he responded, "so where do we begin to delineate my layers of protective pride? It's been a long time, I guess." I looked at his hopeful face and accepted his previous inaction. He was the result of a life unlived, the lost potential of damaged greatness. With my heart steady in matched aspiration, I gave my mind ample time to wrestle with his truth. "There is no official beginning or end," I said proudly, immediately registering my overindulgence and then loosening my seeming grasp on reality. "Simply," I continued, "with continual practice, giving and receiving, you may break open your callous pride. There is no specific training to isolate the pride we so easily discuss. However, we must remember that pride, as an extension and overcoat of insecurity, is only banished where acceptance and love are allowed. Though now identified, the difficult proceeding is the continual checking and validating of the truth within the words you say and the way in which you think. A great question is always, would I condemn another man to my outlook if all I wanted to do was help him, to point the world in a better direction? This always seems to help me in alleviating my temptation towards stagnant, false pride. Never allow yourself to fall victim to the persona. Goals are important, but strides cannot be initiated without the admittance of shortfalls. If you don't believe that you're worthy, none of this matters. But if you have faith that at some point you can realize through these enacted actions that you are worthy, then it all falls into place. The intensity of that intellectual onslaught left Tommy speechless. With his thumbs shooting up from his hands, immobilized by his ruminated revolution, it became obvious that his heart and mind were being cleansed. Like a boy who had found his mother, the spirit in his eyes bounded through the room. As he breathed in with acceptance, he reached forward and beckoned in a handshake. I agreed in action, and then we sat in tranquility for some time. No looming defensiveness remained that day. One layer had been peeled back. Tommy seemed lighter, softer, and even sweeter. We knew what we had done, and we shared in an anticipatory energy that loitered for the remaining time. Before our time expired, Tommy expelled one lost sentiment, adding, "I think the problem of distraught dissatisfaction with the world is intensified when the society around you deems one thing to be paramount. Throughout my time here, one pervasive perspective has leached into all facets of life. It is now at the point of being more painful to have a heart than to have nothing. I have been stripped of positive movement forward, deemed a power-hungry boy. Not by society, but by my own experiences and irresponsible reactions. But what is strange is how well I fit in with everybody else. Like some slick 7 of spades in the dealer's dance stack. We men are only a putrid portion of a broken system. Masculinity must be directed, guided. Without proper fostering, one is unable to develop fully in his connection to the whole. Bubbles we all live in, angry, little, red bubbles. The fabric of us is unwinding, man by man." The instability of his mind struck me, the rapid change in discussion too. After thinking for a while in solitude, I came to understand that we were having the repeat same discussion, each only slightly deviated in manifestation talk of the same problem. The boy lacked purpose. I took a note, stating, "Tommy looks to the heavens for a father. He is disappointed. Tommy looks to others for structured praise through achievement. He is stultified. Tommy looks to himself for faith in the future. He remains in disbelief. Tommy looks around at his present. He is dissatisfied. Where does a boy like Tommy go? What is God but the paternal and maternal love, compounded truth, almost fully unknowable by non-experience? Old Testament and New, is the whole metaphysical world knowable, renewed. I remained curious while rereading some of the previous notes that I had taken. In my review, I understood that the most vehemently avoided issues of Tommy's needed to be resolved first. I then looked at the paper on which he had been doodling. He had assembled a mess of tangled patterns and miniature artworks. The entire page was covered in a complicated order of things, all fighting for dominance. In the scramble, centered perfectly, he had written a message, seemingly to me. My pride, my masquerading shame, it read. It has truly taken everything from me. Addendum via rear. Notes from a future place and time. Bonobo with brain halo horns. False by incomplete, swan and bull. Belligerent back and forth, fomenting. If this life is perpetual, I'm out, suicide out of this war at every level, if not actually moreness generating. I think that all religio-philosophical work has been the same point with different plausible proofs instantiated, and times between or against them. The point through which we are all forced as human beings is that we are separate, but actually, at a most consciously important to us level, one meta thing. I have a feeling that, as with all linear time developments, the next proof is to be most true once again reborn. From the translation, treat others as you wish to be treated, to the truer truth of we are all one, realized, and treat ourselves as such, no matter what, for it is the only thing to do. ADHD is boredom disorder. No innocence without ignorance. The depth of this wish anti-truth is horror. How's this for a cruel joke? Those in love are so inept to explain it in terms of a framework other than symbols and feelings, as if those feelings aren't as predictable as instantiated key and lock metaphysically special, still describable. Those apt enough to explain it feel too unlovable as to feel it properly. No, to feel it felt purely, but less so. Pathetic, but perhaps true abstractions. So much stupid resentment driving me in the avoidance of the problem, my AVPD, and my tries to self-abstract world problems en masse, instead of clearly specific and logically paving forward. But what I have translated by odd necessity just might be the... No matter the truth, looking at my problems now, I was always trying to push blame by rationale, rule in hell and all, and just artificially feel less alone. Also, I think that I have scraped up some limited truth. Cannot solve problems with base of brokenness. Oh yes, one can. Watch. He knew his not true. I knew mine not to be true. Anosognosia. 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 Atoms don't look like that but by translate functional truth. And so it is clear that the full truth of an atom is truer, not fabricated, as too is true with metaphysical translations. Ah, the awfulness of arrogance, of dogma that excludes this idea. Include proof of love, self-dissolution, unity, consciousness, as meaning of all. All morality and fractal humano as this asymptotic self-dissolution, leaning into more consciousness than selves. You okay? Other than whatever it is you're thinking about? Yeah. Like Hiroshima, other than the nuclear bomb is okay. What? Hiroshima? Nothing. Don't worry about it. Hollowness of disorders. Solution as metaphysical restructuring of proxy proofs and understandings of love, truth, realer than self-separateness. Note to Jung: cannot offer a better life than heroin into death if everything is just self. If you think I need to know much about a topic to know basically the deal, then I know you're not smart enough to realize that one thing is all the things. All the things. Crunch, compact, and generalize the meaning of the work of someone. If you don't know what Camus is about, after 10 or so lines, you will never have the faintest idea of what it actually means in an original sense. You will never be original by way first to linear, interpreted, unfolded truth. Intelligence, no, greatness, is not memorized genius, dummy. It's translation of truth, connection, building, etc. All this abstract talk of subjective interpretation, but our discourse here presupposes one truth interpreted at certain levels of consciousness, presumes subjectivity is subsidiary implementation of consciousness. Die instantly, and from my death idea, math will still be. If not for a second between my heartbeats, would it not exist? Like some simulation requiring my vascular PSI persistence? The self-importance of not presupposing one truth and many a-form interpretations of truth, as in both true, absolute everything all more than levels. Yes, if all points to a cat, then it is most likely, functionally, truly, a cat. Anything else is the self-aggrandizement using what if as absolute by presupposed absoluteness of self. But then again, light doesn't know what to do without us viewing it, perceiving it, consciously there to be aware of it. So boring this is. Nietzsche died, and I'm here. If an arch persists because f of x equals negative ax squared, then love is... Why is my universalizing modus down to a cellular level, not up to an etheric sensation? Just how unworthy a cretin requires downwards traversing abstraction to accept more than self-consciousness. Both, as in either illustratable, both true envisionable, work, for they show a non-human focal point as infinitely, precisely important. In other words, one direction allows for fractal extrapolation out into either all directions. If a grain of sand is important, then too is the shell it creates or the home that it makes. The ecosystem too, of varied potency keystones, requires the simple sand to stand. The balanced multiplicity of meaning that allows for more than self to be seen. It is an experience away, a revelation stay, to break the rock into geode, within and everything perfection, total. It's all the same proving of approval of the natural human gift of delocalizable consciousness. This concludes Chapter 5, Part 4 of In the Darkness I See, by Anon Y.